welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. The guest I have for you today, if I have only one word to describe her, it would be involved. This guest is highly successful realtor, international speaker, and trainer in the Tampa Bay real estate market. She's always been an early adopter of technology, from helping IBM launch a personal computer to video testimonials in 2006 to Chat GPT in 2022. She has a unique ability to make complex tech tools and ideas easy to understand and implement for results. She's 2023 chair of the National Association of Realtors Insurance Committee, which we'll talk about, and because that's important to Florida. She is a recognized champion of insurance issues at both the state and national levels, and has been a national trainer for NAR at risk, highly regarded since 2021. She's accomplished author of 7 books, provided invaluable guidance for sellers, especially those dealing with probate in process in Florida. Founding member of the Certified Probate Real Estate Advisory Board. 2019 to 2023, she's been on the NAR board of directors. I think this list would be shorter if I just mentioned the board she's not part of at one time or another. Let's welcome this highly experienced realtor and one of the most influential representatives in the real estate industry, Cyndee Haydon, to the show. Cyndee, welcome.
Well, welcome, and thank you for having me, Tracy. That was quite an introduction. I appreciate it.
It could have gone on for several pages, actually. They'll list all the things you've been involved in. We'll tip on those and how. I think that we could talk a little bit about real estate in general, but obviously with your expertise and experience, share how important it is to be involved or support individuals being involved to make sure, with the NAR lawsuit and all the things going on, how important it is. So, but I do, as we mentioned pre-show, you are running for the Secretary of Florida Realtors for 2025.
I am. I'm excited. And again, I think everything we're talking about today is sort of what's prepared me. And when you talk about the change coming at us and lawsuits or MLS or agents at the center or AI and technology, I think that, we need leaders that are courageous, and courageous, I think, goes in with early adopter, right? It's like, let's not be afraid of things. Let's figure it out and then find the opportunity and leverage it for our members. Right. And so I think all of that kind of comes together. I feel like I've had a lot of opportunities, as you said, to serve, which has been important to sort of learn some of these issues that might take more than a soundbite, but yet also I've learned how to take that and make things very understandable and implementable for my fellow realtors. And that's what I love about bar camps, right? Is that we all go, and it's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about, hey, I have this thing and you have that thing, and let's all collaborate. And when we go, then we all can go faster, farther together, right? So we don't all have to figure it out ourselves. Like, let's work together.
What is some of the, with the NAR lawsuit going on? Obviously, there's been one huge settlement. To me, it's a money grab from a bunch of lawyers. You probably might agree to some extent to that. What are some of the, if you could share with us some of the, maybe some of the backroom discussions of the leadership circles that you're involved in at NAR, at Florida Realtors, some of the things that you guys are talking about. I had Patty Ketchum on a few weeks ago talking about the NAR lawsuit from her angle there. What are some of the things that in Florida that we think we might need to get ahead of, or are we ahead of the curve on that?
So, I think, first of all, there's a verdict, right? But I mean, again, it's going to be appealed and litigated, and the case out in Missouri, the box we had to play in, almost the jury didn't have any ability to say almost anything but that occurred. And so we have a lot of questions about the way the judge kind of set that up. And but what's interesting, Tracy, is nobody on that jury has ever owned a house. So again, here you have an industry that serves people and is the envy of the world, and you have people that have never ever even bought or sold a house hearing limited information. So right. I think there's a lot of room for interpretation, and again, there'll be a lot of debate, and certainly I do feel personally that Just like in business, when you're successful, the cost of doing business, people are looking how to put a hand in the pocket, right? So I
Right.
think some of that's going on.
Yeah.
But I do think that the lawsuit, I think if we take what did we learn or what are the opportunities for the Realtor Association, I think we learned that we're really good of telling what we do and how we do it, but we haven't been as strong to explaining to the consumer why we do it, right? And so again, even down to why we cooperate with other realtors is to get the seller the best outcome. So again, it's all these things that I think what we've learned is that we assume, we're so busy helping people that we sometimes, and I think it's obvious, have missed the boat on explaining and the impact and why we do what we do. And so I think that that's going to be what most of us learn and improve right away. And I
Right.
think the consumer will be better served by just understanding more behind the scenes how it works and why it works. So I think that's an important piece. I think the other piece that's going to have to really be thought about is real estate as an industry, and obviously realtors have come a long way since the 60s and beyond, when we had redlining and discrimination and other things, to really have a fair and open marketplace for everybody.
Yes.
And I think if you change the way that we cooperate and the ability, again, a seller always has the right to choose what to pay a cooperating broker. So if they choose zero, they have that choice before the lawsuit, they have that choice now. But if a seller believes, hey, this is the best way to get the best outcome, the courts and everything else shouldn't get in the middle of it. But if they do, I worry about those first-time home buyers that are just struggling to get in a house with these interest rates, as you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I'm worried about, those people that, we have people that have never in their generational history had a home. How do we get them in a home? How do we help them navigate? Because they don't know the right questions to ask. And again, what we do, I mean, we guide, lead, and protect. And at the end of the day, we get paid a success fee, but that is what we do. And so I understand that corporations may not feel they need a realtor. Someone like BlackRock and Vanguard, institutional buyers, they're running a spreadsheet, crunching numbers. There's no humans involved.
Yeah.
But I can give you story day after day about how we have protected our clients. I mean, little things like looking at a seller's disclosure and there's an abandoned fuel tank. You and I know they can't get a mortgage. But, I had a client that bought something prior to me, and that agent didn't know. They bought it and paid cash and went to sell it. And I was like, well, you just bought someone's problem, right? And it's just all that knowledge and all those things every day. That another house I sold last year, someone had sold the seller and said, oh, you can short-term rent this. They bought it, they renovated it, and it was in an area that had a 3-month minimum. And so again, it's just so many ways
Right.
that we literally, want to help people make a good decision. So
It's interesting. You said that that the jury had none of them had ever owned a house. Well, I really is that a jury of your peers? I don't. That would be my question.
Right?
You would have to at least have a homeowner, if not other real estate agents, on that board to be jurors of your peers. And it just goes to well, I guess kind of leading what my thought was when you were telling a couple great stories there, is the training part of it. Right down to the brokerage level, to even the local boards and the state level, going to really kind of get back to the basics, because we've been moving so fast at different times where we haven't taken time and had a full buyer's consultation explaining everything, or even the listing side. It was just like, throw a sign in my yard and we'll sell in a few days and we'll have multiple offers. That we actually have to explain, this is why you're paying, this is all the things I do that you don't see. And then with the training, I think has to lead towards the technology, because obviously people are going online and learning these things, to back it up with, whether it's instructional videos for the homeowners and so forth, of, putting that out there, what a real estate agent really does, because of a lot of it's kind of like an iceberg, right? You only see the tip, and a lot of it's below the water.
Absolutely. And I think, Tracy, too, the other thing that may come out of this is we are an industry with a low bar for entry. And yet, I think the number is like half of all people that hold a license don't even sell a house every year, and 80% sell less than 5. And so I also think that that's a challenge, and Patty probably spoke to it, where professionalism and making sure you're hiring someone that actually is bringing the skills and the value, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're someone that isn't really doing that for your client, then I think there's going to be technology options that are maybe even better, honestly, because again, they've got built-in checklist or whatever. But I think that I think in Florida, you better have a good realtor. And again, that's kind of been my passion and helping my peers understand, flood insurance. And now you've got citizens mandating flood insurance. You've got second homes and others that are paying more. And then I'm working with a senator in my key contact, Rep Cheney in Tallahassee, but not just in flood insurance, but every area has a different look back period. So now when your insurer says, hey, you need a new roof, but you have to look back over 5 years and you now don't have enough money, you just lost that house. And so I heard a story from one of my peers that said their daughter bought a house last year, completely renovated, which isn't what everybody wants, right? I want it turnkey. I want it renovated.
Sure.
Moved in. 2 months later, the AC went. So she did the right thing. She goes to the city. She said, hey, I need a permit for a new AC. Guess what the city told her? Now she's pregnant with a baby and no AC in Florida in June. And they said, I'm sorry, but the previous owner used up all the money for the 50% rule. And so you can't get a permit. You're like, what?
Oh, pass that one. But okay, there's something there I don't know about. 50%. What? Explain that.
So if you live in a flood zone,
Okay.
so like again in Jacksonville, you're talking on the coast, you're talking, near lakes and rivers and other areas, then there are 5 million people in the United States that have mandatory flood insurance if you have a mortgage, right? You probably run into that. The people that have to have it. The other piece of that is if you're in one of those properties, the depreciated value. So if you have I'll give you my own example. I bought a house that is insured for $250,000, but FEMA's depreciated value says it's worth $130,000. So I can only repair $62,000 worth it, or I lose the house. So again, if it's in 1 year, you go, well, that might be able to cover a roof for things that come up. But if I'm looking over 5 years and I put in an AC, I put in new windows, and now my insurance company says put on a new roof, there are a lot of people that I worry are going to find out that they're going to have to just scrap that house. It's pretty scary.
Because those are like essentials to a house being a house.
Yeah.
It's not like you were calling
exactly.
up and
It's
saying,
not
I want to add a
improvements,
room.
right? You're maintaining it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
but
why you're on the NAR. What is it?
Well, again, that's why chairing the insurance committee for NAR has been a passion, because we've wanted to educate people on, and really my peers and realtors, to be that consultant to the client, to make sure they understand what are the ramifications of the decisions. And that's why it makes me crazy when I think, oh, I can go on XYZ website and just buy a house. You can. Again, and just like attorneys, nobody needs until stuff goes wrong, right? It gets very expensive on the other side. And our goal is to help people avoid those costly mistakes and buy a really good home, safe home, but a good investment, right? So
100%, 100%. I was just thinking, I know it was a couple of years ago, but they regularly have it, was the, I think it was the counties here. I'm in St. Johns County in St. Augustine, and they were, talking about these houses get damaged or, whatever. Yeah. There's calculations done on the flood damage. And then if they, they have to raise the house to a certain level, there's a lot of complicated things going on that, I'm on the west side of 95, so I don't worry about it too much. But those on the east side of 95 and out in St. Augustine Beach or any of those places wherever, years ago was reasonable. Now, you got to think of the insurance, and then if you do something happens, they want you to come back, and if they're going to fix the house, you got to raise it, and it's getting crazy. I'm going to take a step back because we could dig into insurance and talk about that all day because that is a great subject.
Right.
And again, having an informed real estate agent is so vital. But let's step a little bit back. For you, Cyndee, where are you from?
So growing up, that was the hardest question. I was born in Miami. My parents moved every 2 years growing up. And then I went to University of Florida, worked for IBM, moved some more. But we have lived since 1991 in the Tampa Bay area, and I currently live in Madeira Beach. So when we finally found our place, I put down roots. I'm like, this is my forever home. So we love it here.
So you go to University of Florida at that time. I think it looked like you were a dual major, if I saw your LinkedIn correctly, business and
computer science.
Computer science there.
Mm-hmm.
What was your vision as a career, just as a businesswoman? Obviously you went. IBM is a very structured environment, as the vision that I have of working for IBM. Was that like, hey, this is what I want? Thought of doing for the next 30, 40 years of your life?
So it's really funny. I always wanted to be in marketing, and I had a uncle that was a business owner, and he said, get a marketable skill. Like there's marketing in everything. So that was how I ended up getting into computer science. And the funny part is how I ended up working for IBM is because I've always excelled at work, like whatever I put myself through, high school, college, etc. And I know I had a good work ethic, but I would look around on Friday nights with people with pizzas and like these cards. And I was like, okay, this is hard. Like, this is hard for me. This isn't my like flow. And I thought, let me volunteer and try to do some work and see how I do with that, because maybe I'm going down a path that's just not really going to, I'm not going to be good at. So I actually went to the dean of the college and I said, hey, I'd like to volunteer. I'm in the computer science, business. And I'm sitting there and the branch manager of IBM calls him looking for an intern. And so the guy says, well, she might be sitting right here. And I'm thinking, I got busted for something. I'm like, what did I do? And it was really interesting because we had a meeting and my GPA was not a 4.0. And so I sat across from this branch manager and he said, we don't usually hire people with your GPA. And it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't IBM-ish, right?
Right.
And I think, in that moment, it kind of my character, which is true of everything in my life. I mean, I just took personal responsibility and said, I understand. Meaning there's no excuse I'm going to give you. It's like, it is what it is. I'm putting myself through college. I'm working a job. I'm doing whatever it is, but I just said, again, if that's the rule, I'm not going to change it, and I just said, I understand. From there, we went on and I got hired at the time when the personal computer was coming out. And they said, we need somebody to train all these departments, because it was the first time that the computer had gone from the back room and the mainframe into the business user world. Right. And I will tell you that exactly like you, at that time, IBM was the largest corporation and they had a reputation like none. And I thought, I am not a stuffy person, like blue suit, white shirt, and kind of Stepford Wives is what I imagine. Right. I got to tell you, it was the most entrepreneurial place you could imagine. Everything was, if you had an idea, own it, be empowered to do it, and be responsible for the results. By contrast, I ended up co-oping for Houston Lighting and Power, and that was like government work. And people got mad at me. They said, you work too fast, you work too hard, you're making us look bad. And it was just, so it was such a gift to find out, because I think it's not only our skills, but the cultures of where we fit in that it's sometimes what doesn't work gives you more information than what did work, right? So
Always, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So, and then I went to work for him. I got a job offer after college to go to Lexington, Kentucky, where I met my husband. And that was actually what you were saying, more in the pure programming, system integration. I looked at my husband, my then, significant other, and I go, yeah, no, this is not for me. I'm going to go back to the field in marketing. And I really loved just like being that consultative salesperson like I am today in real estate. So he had lived his whole life in Lexington, Kentucky. He ended up saying, like, I'm with you, let's go. And we went to the marketing side of the house. Loved it. And eventually got back to Tampa Bay. I wanted to be in Florida. We went to Philly and then Florida. And then they said, your next job is in Dallas. And nothing wrong with Dallas, but listen, I'm at the Gulf of Mexico, white sand and water at my back door and sunsets. I was like, people work their whole lives to live this dream. Like, we could figure out another way to earn a living. So at that time they were trying to downsize and they offered a buyout, and we like raised our hand and they go, well, you're both the best in the branch where you work. We're not paying you to leave. But they didn't lay people off back then. So it got to the last day and they're like, all right, we'll let you have the buyout. And what that did for us, my husband has been there longer and we got medical, and we never knew, who knew as an entrepreneur, but medical was life-changing, right? It allowed us to work, but then make sure we protect our family. So
Sure.
that's how we both went to work for our clients the next day, did that for a while. And then we said, we want to start a real estate business in 2005.
So yeah. So how did you, was that something maybe you had been thinking about years in advance, or how did that come across in front of you that real estate was the route for you?
So I think what happened is we actually got to that stage where we wanted to have children. My husband, when I married him, had 2 children from a previous marriage. So we had made a commitment and we had raised them, took some time. And so we were at that stage where it was like, okay, we want to have our own children. And that means it'd be nice if we lived in the same place. Saw each, because again, our jobs would be some travel, some other stuff. And we looked around and kind of said, what are we passionate about? What can we transfer the skills we have and be good at, and also what can we get paid a decent wage if we do a good job. So right. Real estate came up for us. And but it's funny because we both walked away back then from 6-figure jobs, and the definition of an optimist is jump in when the market's crashing. It's like because he and I both win at the same time, so we burned the bridges. We were all in. I mean, failure was not an option, right? So yeah. So we started in 2005 and, learned
do you
kind of
have
real
any
estate.
initial struggles in the transition to share? And, with the real estate agents that will be listening, I mean, kind of some trials and tribulations that first year as an agent and transitioning from corporate America to, your own alarm and you getting yourself out of bed.
So not that part, but I think the part that people don't realize is when you're an entrepreneur, you wear all the hats. You're the marketing, the accountant, the customer service, all of that. And so I think first of all, just there are things that each of us is good at and things that we're less good at, right? And so kind of filtering through that. I think that what I learned most is there's so many ways to be successful in real estate financially. And so it was really kind of discerning what way worked for us. So when we started, interestingly enough, my husband loved Craig Proctor, and he loved the idea of I can have a business, a successful real estate business in my underwear in my house. And I was like, so we started with, bargain home lists and all this. And I just came to him after 2 years and I go, if this is our future, like, I don't want it. These are not my people. And it was because the message we sent out was very transactional. So the people we attracted were very transactional, and I'm very relational. Right. So also along the journey, I had gotten introduced to Buy Referral Only and Joe Stomp. And I was like, these are my people, the abundance mentality, the collaborative mentality, the let's help each other be successful. And so I actually built we call them a do group, but 3 other women. We've been together now for 15 years. We meet once a week. And we went from being like in survival, like everybody starts, like paycheck to paycheck. Right. To last year, all of us were on Tom Ferry's top 1.5% of realtors in the country, right? And we are just team business, husband and wife team. So it's not like this big, but we've
Right.
all built it by taking care of clients, building repeat referral, and bringing value to people. So, but for me, that was where it was like, I love working when I'm in that mode of helping people and delivering, and so that's where even
The two other women that you teamed up, because they're not on your team, but they're more like accountability partners type of thing.
yes.
And you share, or obviously when, the curveballs come at you that you haven't dealt with before, you kind of get together, hey, I got this situation. Have you guys ever dealt with this type of thing?
Absolutely. Again, things like, before they changed the coming soon, we developed something called gardening. But the answer was, like, if you were going to sell a home, you would do things like have an open house for the neighbors ahead of time, because they often know someone that wants to live in the neighborhood or different things. And so we would work together to, like, what do we want to say in the letter? What do we want to, do the brochure? Hey, what's working for you? Okay, how would we tweak that? And so part of it was, okay, you write this postcard, I'm going to write this letter. Like, we would be a undefined team, but I think that's the future of the world. Like, that's part of my passion for Florida Realtors. Like, we have to collaborate more rather than compete, in my opinion. So for me, that's been something that's been successful. And that's really the basis of Bar Camp, right? It's like, let's collaborate. Let's find people that we share what I'm good at, what you're good at. And again, one of the women is incredible with language. She says things in a way that are just so spot on, right? Obviously, at the group, mine has been tech, right? Like, I'll be like, hey, this is how we can do this smarter or leverage this. Like, there was a time when I had 3 videos on page 1 of Google, right? Like, it was the early days before everybody else, 2006. But again, it's just everybody could pick a piece, and then we just are able to do more together.
Do you see because collaboration was the word before you even said it that was in my mind, and I was going to say it, but then you said it, so I to use the fancy word. But a lot of agents see the other agents as competition, and in your experience, been doing this for a couple of decades, and looking at it and going, some will stay, some will be there long term. Some are going to last a few years and move, whatever, life happens. Some just will never, just never bear fruit. It just happens. A high percentage actually don't. So to look at others as competition versus collaborating with them, and seeing the 3 of you, probably enjoy going out to dinner, maybe you can go on vacations together and enjoy, because the 3 of you have, held each other accountable, leaned on each other, I'm sure, during downtimes. It's been better than looking at that person going, oh, they're competition. I don't want to share my secrets.
Right. I think I have 2 examples of both, and how it's easy to fall into one or the other. But, starting out in the beginning, we came out of technology and we didn't have a sphere. So we were building a business on Google, page 1, there's only 10 spots on page 1, right? So the work that we would do to do that, I was like, I'm not really telling other people because there's only 1 page, right? But many people have built a real estate business. The more transactional, the more, hey, I'll buy your house in 60 days. Hey, whatever, the more competitive I think you are in, because somebody else is going to make an offer. Right. So when we made the switch to be all in on relationship, it really unleashed the abundance mentality, because I say every day, my people are my people. They want to work with me. And I even have people that do something different, and I just let it go and say that wasn't meant for me, and some other blessing comes, right? Because again, sometimes, just like with friendships, you're in there for a season or a reason or a time, and you just have to let it go, and and I think there's where the abundance comes, because our relationships are unique. But if it's and I don't want to say a gimmick, if it's a finite strategy, then it's more competitive, because we're going after the same thing. And so as people move, and as we find people that are relational, you can really share. I've been able to really share freely, because I hope, first of all, 80-something% of people, 90% of people never do anything with it. So share away,
Exactly.
Share away.
Exactly.
But the ones that do, it's their people that they're going to do. And then they're going to figure something out, share it back. And you go, wow, okay, now that jump starts, so
Right.
I
Yeah,
have
I
no
100%
doubt.
agree. I mean, from the mortgage side, if you're sitting there, hey, I got the lowest rates, someone's going to
Yes,
come and give you a lower rate, and then you're
there
out of
you go.
business.
There you go. Right? And
uh,
is rate all that matters? I mean, again, there's people that, they thrive in that business. It's just, here's the difference.
yep,
That kind of, the competition mentality is like the guy that has to plant corn every day, right? And then we're building an orange orchard over here, and the oranges come year after year. I had 4 listings yesterday from referrals or repeat clients, which is a blessing.
yep,
But if I was out there having to put corn seed and wait, it's like it never. It's tiring. It's wears you. When people say burnout, that burns you out.
100%.
But if you're dealing with people you care about, it's really energizing.
Well, it becomes transactional, and I think that eventually the transactional thing, having worked in a call center for the first 12 years of my mortgage career, it becomes that, because they're calling on an 800 number, and it's
Right.
type of thing, and over time, yeah, you will get some repeat clients because you did treat them well, and they're like, oh, that was easy, and the technology is there. But most of them, I mean, the first question out of their mouth on the phone is because they're calling on an 800 number, not across from you, not locally. They're just say, what's your rate? What's your weight? Let me call someone else, and it just goes. But changing subject a little bit, I was on your social media. You were posting some
Yeah.
pictures, real estate agent day over in Tallahassee this past
Sure.
week. What was the word that you were trying to get across? What were some of the discussions going on with your representatives in Tallahassee?
Absolutely. Well, I think this year our first conversation was really thank you, because finally last year we made some historic legislation with funding hometown heroes for affordable housing, but that money was used as spoken for in 50 days, $100 million. That's how much demand. So,
Yeah.
part of it was saying thank you for the first step. However, that pump is not primed yet. In a few years, then when people sell a house, that money goes back in. But we got to have a few years of help to get, people that are trying to get the American dream of home ownership in access. My near and dear passion has been about insurance, and it was really long before this, but I lost everything in a house fire in the 80s. And so I know the resiliency for families, and I was lucky. I had good insurance, but a lot of people don't know. And if they can't access it, you just worry about them. So we were there saying, hey, great first step. You kind of close those legal loopholes, but in our neighborhoods and every mortgage, before we do it, you got to say, okay, your taxes, your insurance, your payment, but the wild card, the third stool that's kind of been wobbly is insurance,
Yep.
So how do people afford it? And more importantly to me is, how do they afford it long term? So even those first time home buyers, you get in a house, if you got to give the keys back when the insurance renewal comes, I don't want any part of that. For me, I've been there, and it's like, I want to set people up for success. That's what realtors do. And so again, a start means we just have to keep showing, hey, this is great, but there's more need. So, and then we're doing things, I think, interestingly enough, commercial is very impacted by insurance because of the way their financing works and what's required, different than a home for 30-year mortgage. There's like, that's an issue. And then business rent tax, we got that coming down. So we're the only state that has it. And so we want to be, again, favorable to businesses. So those things really were on the forefront. I think the other thing that you and I both want is, currently, if a condo has 150 units or more, they have to make their documents and information transparent to consumers. And you and I both know we're trying to figure out for people, like, does it qualify for a VA loan? Is this solid? Will they do the
Right.
condo questionnaire? So now the proposal is, if a condo has 25 units or more, they're going to need to be transparent. That is good for buyers and sellers and realtors and mortgage people, because again, we believe people should have the good information to make good decisions. And that's a big step on that path. So that's really kind of exciting that they've taken that up, and it looks like it's promising.
What do you think? You're on NAR's insurance. What is the actual title
Committee.
again? The
Yeah.
um,
Chair of the insurance committee.
insurance. We'll just call it the insurance committee.
Yeah, insurance committee
What?
works.
Well, I guess insurance is going up everywhere. I had an agent that I use on a little. We just did a little streaming video talking about insurance. In your eyes, and this being kind of on a national basis, but if we can bring it back to Florida, what is causing the rapid in the last 24, I don't know, 36 months, I don't know, you could probably narrow it down, rise in the insurance costs, and to the point now it's actually a huge factor. You were telling agents, get insurance quotes like right away, especially for that marginal buyer, because when I worked for a large lender for a builder here in town, we just put $100 in there, and that was good for qualifications, and get insurance later. But now it's not so easy, especially on the existing homes. I mean, you get a marginal person, and it may cost them not qualifying.
100%. You are speaking my language. So a couple things. Think about it. Since COVID, how much more expensive labor, supplies, all of those things are. So that's a huge factor.
Yep.
Then you look at the value of homes, which again, here we've seen in our area, you see 60%, 70%, well, a big increase. So again, that comes into effect. And the third thing that's very interesting, and we actually had a work group because in 2021, President Biden had an executive order that said Fannie and Freddie needed to underwrite for climate financial risk. Well, for me, because words get thrown around, I don't know about you, and I'm like, okay, what is climate financial risk?
Exactly.
Does it even exist? And then if it does, how could it come at us? I got to tell you what was super interesting, and this applies so much to Florida as well, is FEMA has never accounted for rain and precipitation. So when you look at what happened in Orlando with flooding in Ian, when you look at Vermont, when you look at Connecticut, when you look at Hurricane Harvey, those are all rain events. So those things are all coming into play, that there are costs and damages happening in places that many of the consumers think they're safe because we said, oh, it's not a mandatory flood area, right? To the tune of 10 million properties they've identified. 5 million currently have mandatory flood. 10 million more should. Think about it. That's huge. And then the last factor is, I think it's up to 40% of your insurance payment is reinsurance, which is the insurance that insurance companies have that kind of say, hey, if it gets really big, you're going to come in and like make sure we don't go under.
Right.
And so those people, quite honestly, think about this. When you look back 2 years, 3 years, and interest rates were 2%, 3%, there weren't a lot of places to put your money to get a good return. So they would take the risk with real estate and insurance. Now you look at where interest rates are and you go, okay, they've lost in Florida $1 billion a year. So you go, I got to go to work every day and I got to pay, I'm losing $1 billion, or I can take this money and put it somewhere else and I got a much more guaranteed return. So I think all those factors are like the perfect storm we're working through right now.
It's complicated for the average consumer to, bring all that in and understand the the reinsurance. That was something that she had said as well, and understand. I have my personal conspiracy theory because I think the BlackRocks and the other individuals who are own majority of these insurance companies, again, are probably instigators of the Biden thing, making Fannie and Freddie, the climate, game, and using the language and so forth to drive some of the cost up as well. I don't know. That's just my little 2 cents.
Well, Tracy, that's why, listen, that was why it got my attention, because in the beginning, and people, I get interviewed by news people all across the country, and they're saying, well, is this affected by climate change? No, I don't know what the climate's going to do in the future, but I know it rains in places that we've either we've built denser, so it can't get absorbed. Things have happened. I'll give you that, that's finite. I give you that. But I think the thing that worried me the most, and it still worries me, is this. Exactly what you said. When I was on the NAR sustainability PAG in 2019, and I heard from BlackRock and Vanguard and CoreLogic and people saying, we don't want climate financial risk properties in our portfolio. Okay. So then I look around and I go, well, wait a minute. You sell mortgages, but we sell mortgage-backed securities to investors. If investors ever said, we don't want to buy this, then do we all end up having either portfolio loans, or we don't get loans, or we pay huge interest rates? Because so for me, that's why I really worked with our committee to do a white paper on the 10 ways it could come at us, because I worry that it will, real or not, impact or not, there are enough people with enough things going on that I think it is going to be a factor in the real estate affordability. And so I would like us to have a seat at the table, helping craft a solution, then have it happen to us like Bigger Waters did, where all of a sudden Congress goes and passes something retro 6 months, and people that had homes went from flood insurance that was $1,400 to $14,000, and they said, hey, write us a check. And I'm looking in the eyes of a veteran with tears that says, they just foreclosed on me and I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And as a realtor, 6 months, how would I know they'd go retro back 6 months? I mean, at least now I can educate people. I can say, hey, here's what you need to expect. Here's what you need to plan for. Does it work for your budget? And the more we can do that, I think the more we help people make good decisions for properties that they can afford and stay in.
What are things that, is there anything we can do as citizens of the state of Florida? And then there was talk that some of the legislation, because obviously we're a very insurance litigious state, right? I mean, the lawsuits involving insurance companies and claims and all that stuff is very high in Florida. I think there was some statistics, almost as much as the other 49 other states combined. What can we do at the state level, or lean on our local representatives? I have one of the state senators and possibly the local congresswoman on the state level going to living in my neighborhood. The senator does, the other one's running for the open seat.
Nice.
What can we share with them to hopefully tamper some of this stuff down to protect Florida a little bit, because this train's getting out of control?
Yeah. So they did a great job last year closing most of these incredible loopholes, right? And so we're seeing that less lawsuits. We're seeing new insurers come in. The hard part is the insurers are already here. They have to settle out these litigious lawsuits that already existed. So they're a little disadvantaged. So I think all that's happening. I think this year the governor, so this would be how you would help this year. The governor has proposed a budget that they would not put taxes on insurance and other aspects this year. And so the Congress, our legislature, our senators and representatives have to pass a budget that supports that. But it would mean about a 6% reduction. Again, it's not going to, but if we could just get things stable and start moving down and get more competition, I think we're in a step in the right direction. The other program that really is helping is My Safe Florida Home. And that's allowing people to do mitigation, like put a new roof, put in windows, put a new garage door. And they're finding that people that are using that. So what that means is for every dollar a consumer spends, the state will put up to $2. So if you had a $15,000 roof, you put in $5, the state pays $10. And so and it's for townhomes and homes right now. They're talking about maybe expanding to condos, but what they're finding is the people that are taking advantage of it are seeing many of them have $1,000 a year reduction on their insurance, and they're living in safer homes, right? I mean, at the end of the day, Florida has a little older housing stock in many areas. How do we get more resilient? How do we mitigate? How do we harden and be safer?
Especially over where you're at, the St. Pete area, I think is one of the oldest areas in Florida.
It is. Yeah. That's why when it came to flood insurance, we were the most impacted. We had 54,000 homes then that were before FEMA even invented flood insurance, right? So absolutely, we have to, struggle with that.
I think many people are mind boggled from the whole, 10 years on the roof deal.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
obviously you're told they have a warranty, you know, it's not the warranty they think it is. But yeah,
Right.
how these insurance companies, you know, from what their agents are telling me, from 0 to 10, almost every insurer that's available will do it. You start going over 10 years, you start narrowing down who's available. And then at 15, I mean, forget it. I mean, to try to find insurance, which is affecting obviously the agent, you know, who's, you know, listing someone buying or selling the home. I mean, it's so
Right.
important. What's the age of the roof is the first question, right?
Right. 100%. They passed legislation last year that said that insurance companies had to insure roofs that were under 10 years, right? And then
Mhm.
every 5 years, then after that, you've got to prove there's 5 years of life. The goal is 5 years of life. And the reason is because, as you know, part of it is that Florida has a very favorable policy that when an insurance company goes to do a roof, they can't patch it. They have to replace the whole thing. So rather than repair, you might have had something happen to one piece and it's like it gets complicated. So
Right.
roofs are expensive, a lot of people after it. They did a good job on really closing that down. The other thing, and I'll be honest with you, I'm in the middle of putting a new roof on my house, and I just told them, like, give me a 10-year roof because I'm really not I mean, like, give me the cheapest roof there is, seriously, on the lifetime, because I don't see getting it. I don't see, I think the trends are definitely against it. So I think for those of us going forward, we're making different decisions. Someone says, I got a 25-year roof you can get. I was like, yeah, right. No, I'm going to be replacing it in 10. So give me the 10-year roof,
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, right? You say, hey, I spent all these extra thousands of dollars because this
Right.
shingle is rated for 25 years. The reality is they're looking at the permit date. And then what's the day is today? Oh, you're at 12, 13 years. Yeah. I don't want to buy your house because the roof is too old.
Well, even if they want to buy it, they can't get insurance.
Right. Well, you're
That's
right.
the problem.
That
They'll
exactly.
buy it. They think it's fine, no roof. They'll take it, but the lender says, mm-mm, the insurance company says, mm-mm. So
So you don't see that really changing so much. So you're doing the economic thing, as I know I'm going to have to change my roof if I move out of here in 12, 13 years. This buyer is probably going to make me either
yeah.
compensate them or have it put a new roof on. Is that
So
your kind
every
of?
seller I work with, I tell them, you just need to get a 4-point and find out now, so we
Mhm.
know how to negotiate, right? If a roof has to be done, there are roofers that'll get paid at closing. There are roofers, citizens will let you have 30 days. Again, it comes back to work with an experienced realtor that knows how to help you navigate. It doesn't mean that the seller has to write a check right now before they've even gotten money coming in. There's a
Right.
lot of ways to do it, but it is a reality for sure.
Right. Oh, and obviously on the lending side, I mean, we can put it in escrow. I mean, there's all
Yeah.
those programs to do it 100% from that standpoint. Um, I'm going to go down because I had your whole list. We've been talking about the insurance committee. Tell us a little bit about your experience. From 2000, you're no longer on the board of directors, right, at NAR, right? Your term
Yep.
ended.
No,
Is
I
that
am still on the board of
you're still on
directors.
the board?
Hmm.
So you've been there since 2019.
Yes.
What are some of the things that, on a national level, all of a sudden your eyes just like, you were like, oh my God, I didn't, some of the stuff that you've learned being on a board and being exposed to real estate on a national level?
Well, the reason that I got involved at my local level and then at Florida Realtors and National, all three is, and on the public policy side for me, is because it makes me a better realtor for my consumers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I love going and learning more about what's happening. For instance, one of my peers in Naples just shared how there's companies building modular homes after the storm, and they're just bringing them in, boop, boop, and that the ones they had before the storm went to 180-mile-an-hour winds, right? Like that's going to help people I know sometime in the future, maybe even myself, right? So I think those things are important. I think it's been for me also because Florida has, we're the biggest state, we have the most realtors, is making sure our issues are addressed, and being able to bring some, like I said, talking to FEMA about, should a roof really be in the 50% rule? Like, we know they're going to wear out. So why are you penalized? Like, I'm not adding an addition, right? you want a safe house. So why would you not let us put a roof on? Right. So I
Exactly.
think that some of those things, are helpful. And it's interesting now, I think, kind of segueing, because I've done so much in public policy, but looking at artificial intelligence and in seeing people that I sense are afraid versus leaning into the opportunities, right? And so I think one of the things as a national organization is you get people from all spectrums, all markets, all backgrounds. And because of my background and because of my career, I'm always saying we're not putting genies back in the box, so let's figure out how to leverage it, how to do it responsibly and professionally, but let's not limit realtors' competitiveness. I heard that there was an MLS somewhere that said if you used AI on your listing description, you had to put it in there like the virtually staged photos. And I'm like, okay, so I could shop at the Fiverr and someone could give it to me and I put it in for nothing. So you're like, this friction doesn't make sense, right? And so I think some people have,
So if you used AI, whether it was in the description or the virtual house staging, they wanted you to actually make some sort of statement
declaration.
that you used AI.
Yeah. That there is an MLS in the country right now, not Stellar and not, not NEFARs, but there are people that are saying that. And I don't think that's the right approach, right? Because again, you're trying, what I put in a listing description, I'm responsible for fair housing. I'm responsible for truth. I'm responsible for facts. But, bigger businesses, wealthier people always have had assistants. They've had, so
Right.
again, AI is just an assistant and a tool to be used responsibly. And it's actually sort of an equalizer and a democratization of what people could do using, like, directing it for what you want. So that's been very interesting that, more talk about ethics and use. And so
Yeah.
again, I think we need a seat at the table for that.
There's more important subjects than did they use a virtual staging tool to attract some. We all know those pictures are as oftentimes are a lot better than that house looks. We know that. I mean, and it gets you in there. It just sounds like someone who doesn't use AI, and so wants
Right.
to kind of hinder others from using it because they think
Right.
it's an advantage in some way. That's my opinion on
I
that.
think I think you're right. And I think for me it's so interesting because I dove really heavy into ChatGPT because it's one of the few things. So two times have I dove heavy in my career. One was I started video testimonials in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about people that are just figuring out video and back in 2006. But what brought me to it has always been about the consumer. So I deal with a lot of second home and people that are not here, vacation rentals. So I said, well, people really don't want to hear what I would say about myself. They want to hear what other people's experience was.
Right.
What did they learn? How would it help? And so for me, video was a way to do that. And it's funny, the first video I ever captured has been viewed almost 12,000 times. And it has really crappy audio because it's on the beach and it's like, and people always want it today. People want to tell me that video is awful. And I go, I know, but how many of your clients have introduced you to 12,000 people? Like, it's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
Right.
Today we do better. You and I've got professional mics, but you go with where you are and you don't wait for perfection.
Right.
So when I saw ChatGPT, what really, really has been my focus and passion is how to have it help realtors or people using it communicate and connect better. And because think about what you do and I do. We take people through some of the most stressful transactions of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And many times our biggest job is keeping them from sabotaging. We're getting them from where they are to where they want to be. But sometimes it's a challenge as the things go wrong and how we bring people along and what their personality style is. And how do we have the right words to, be empathetic, but also still guide them to where they need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's what the surprise is I've been teaching people how to better understand my own style, but just like in life, the better the questions, the better the outcome, right? And so same with that tool. It's like the better you ask it, the better outcome. But what it's interesting is I learned more about my style, and it changes in different situations. If I'm asking a seller for a price reduction, I'm not coming with the same tone and voice as I do when I'm sharing tips on a video for 5 ways you can, save money and energy in your home, right? I mean, there's a different energy level, there's a different, what I've found though interesting is it's been great for helping me improve my weaknesses. And most of us fail at our weak points, not our strong points. Our strong points get us to a certain part. But at the end of the day, you and I only get paid if we're successful at the end. So,
Right.
almost there doesn't get it, right? So like nice try doesn't get it. Success is the only thing that we get paid a success fee for. So it's really, I have found, helped me look at some of the areas. One for me is brevity, becoming like, whether it's Florida Realtors or other places, insurance. How can I take really big, weighty subjects and help communicate them as succinctly and quickly as possible? Because we still live in a world where the average person's attention span is that of a goldfish, 8 seconds, right? So it's a powerful tool, and that's why I'm excited to share some of that at the One Coast Bar Camp, right?
Yeah.
Is because I think a lot of people are kind of being lulled into like, the cheap tricks, right? Like, oh, right there.
Yeah, the flashy thing. And the reality is all these things that every training that I go to, I've been to this One Coast, the last 2 years in a row. I sit in a lot of on the social media, that kind of thing, and everyone's looking for, here's your key. Just do this 1, 2, 3, and you'll take off. And it just doesn't work that way. It is a long-term game. This, whether you're doing videos or, I like to obviously, prop the agents up, get them on, tell their story. We cut them in the reels. The long form is always there, video and audio, but it's the short form that gets it. And it's a long-term game. You have to consistently be doing it there. I wanted to jump over, since you are on the the demand for housing nationally is high, but obviously Florida's on steroids. And I remember, and just kind of want to get your thought on this, back in the 80s, when Florida started to pick up, Palm Coast was one of the places that I can name because I was there. I remember friends of my parents moving there, and you saw in the Daytona area, type of thing where, and I'm sure it was happening over on the West Coast as well. You were seeing these manufactured home, nice communities being built, even on golf courses and so forth, because you had they're visualizing the older retirees coming here, which we still have, but we have the families moving in, and so there's even a greater demand. I was on the St. Johns County Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and it really was almost like banging your head against the wall, because it just doesn't. We're really not seeing that. I'm going to use a word that's not a real bravery. That politician that stands out and said, "Hey, we've got to make some room for some affordable housing, because these guys running the restaurants, these guys mowing the lawns, these guys are, being our county employees, aren't paid very high. Teachers have a problem in St. Johns County, I'm sure in other counties as well. They can't live in the county and teach unless obviously their spouse is making a lot more income. So what is the answer for Florida in your mind to create not just the money for hometown heroes, because these builders, if they could sell the house for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, that's what they're going to do. So where can we keep that affordable house, that sub 300,000, I think is really the number now, type of home, and build that level of home? Where do you think that answer is?
So I think one of the challenges in Florida that sometimes we're not thinking about is the cost of the land. So when you look at it before they even start building, right? I mean, we only have so much land, and a lot of it. And then, like you said, they got to decide, okay, I've got this land. How do I leverage my investment? So what I'm seeing, and St. Petersburg is a great example, but we're hearing about it across the country, is really re-examining and getting an open mind around accessory dwelling units, right? So the idea, think of it like this, maybe a little cottage on your property, and whether it's multi-generational, our children or our parents, being there. But, a lot of cases you look at things that were built and there's enough land to have somebody else there, right? And we went through this land code development that was really somewhat managing what they wanted in a community, right? And
Right.
so again, some of the rules, like for instance, to me, and this, I'm just gonna say Cyndee Haydon thinks, but some of these HOAs that say you can't have a vehicle that has writing on it, that means as a realtor. But really, in the day, it was, let's keep plumbers and AC people out. We don't think they're really good for I mean, let's be honest, right? Like that's what I perceive. I think that's so outdated. Like, I think that's so outdated. Like, if I want words on my car, why do you care? Right. And so I think it's those kind of things that we're slowly but surely having to re-examine of, are they serving? I know early on when I was in leadership Pinellas, the city of Dunedin was partnering with businesses saying, how can we build a Publix and then let them have housing above it, right? I think the one challenge I'm seeing, and even though at the state level, a lot of dollars are giving for building apartments, and I personally struggle because that apartment could be a condo where the owner is getting generational wealth, building equity, et cetera. And so I think that, that is something that we should consider, is how do we make people, even if it's a smaller thing, accessory dwelling or a condo, versus the corporate entities are building more housing that will almost, I worry, trap people from ever making the transition to owning their own piece of real estate, right? So yeah,
It's
it's a
going to
challenge.
max out their budget. Well, I know one of the problems now, the talk is the average car payment, right? We're trying to qualify people, and the average car payment has made its shift, and now that's eating up another, put 2 cars in the family, that eats up another, $400 or $500 of the debt ratio that they could, be buying these expensive houses, and the balance of one or the other. Yeah, you keep pushing people. Well, I think a lot of consumers, they don't necessarily think of what they can afford based on their lifestyle. They're basing on what they can get approved for, which I've told people for 18 years, we can approve you for a lot. I don't think you want that kind of payment. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the low interest rates lulled a lot of people along that, so it was easy. It didn't feel like that much. And then all of a sudden you've got this, monster that you could be kind of keeping you back. I have a young son who's in the Army, and he and his wife own a home, and obviously they were able to use a VA loan to get into it, but they've been very prudent because they've seen so many of their friends, colleges are giving credit cards, and they try to suck you in, and they're like, hey, let us help you buy the first car. And they're seeing their friends get stuck in jobs they hate because they have to pay the man. They have to pay, the person they made that with. So I think that's also part of it. At the national level, we have a program we're rolling out about financial literacy. But much like yourself, I think that's a conversation that we need to have more of, because people are in over their heads sometimes before they ever realize, or even if they are, how do we get a path to set them up to benefit from the American dream and home ownership? Absolutely.
Yep. I want to finish with 2 things. I want to go back to, I got over my shoulder, your Facebook page. What is, as secretary, that you're running for 2025 for Florida Realtors, what is it that they need to know, and why should they? I don't even know. How is it actually selected? Is it just the members actually vote for, or how are you actually awarded that seat?
Sure. So Florida Realtors has board of directors from around the whole state, and there are just under 900 of them. And in August, they will vote, and they will select from me and another candidate who they choose to serve. And for me, I've kind of focused on 4, what I'll call them, pillars, but based on everything we've talked about, I believe we're in a time where we need courageous leadership, people that will have the real conversations. And whether it's an elephant in the room or not, let's have it. Let's find a way forward. That we need to be dedicated to advocacy, the issues you're talking about, the affordability, the insurance, all those things. We need people that understand those issues, are experienced, and can continue to help us, make a better place to live, work, and play for Florida. We need people who can create a brighter future and focus on, thinking, and that's kind of looking at AI and technology and other things. It's like people that'll think outside the box, people that aren't afraid to try new things, people that can say, what if we don't get stuck and we've always done it this way. And the third is, someone that really cares and is for our members, keeping realtors, profitable and having a seat at the center of the transaction and at the table. And then as a Florida Realtor director and leaders, I think we have to have someone that is mentoring and bringing other people along, because again, our future is the future leaders. And it's one of the things I tell people, having moved so much growing up, where we started on this conversation, I was always that kid having to find a new seat at the table. And so for me, I'm passionate about a big tent and everybody having an opportunity and a seat to be at that table, because I think when everyone's included, everyone wins. And so that's the kind of leader I am, and I think every challenge and change that I've been through prepares me to be able to handle whatever it is that's going to come at us. But what I do think is, I don't think this is a time where we're going to be sitting around eating bonbons and, reminiscing about the glory days. It's going to be shoulder to shoulder, get in there, do the work, and make sure that we're still here 3, 5, 10 years down the road. That's what I think.
Well, you agree? Florida's on a cutting edge. I mean, all these issues are relatively new. Not that we couldn't predict them possibly. COVID definitely threw a surge in the migration to Florida, but you've got to have the experience of the past, because a lot of these steps we're taking now, whether it's in insurance, affordable housing, they're new steps. They're not something that hey, this is what happened 20 years ago. And of course, those generations are gone. It's who's here now, who's going to be the next person, so we can get some of these things smoothed out, because we are really treading a new path.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm just grateful that, again, someone like you in the mortgage, because we all do this together, mm-hmm. And so I think that, and it goes back to that same thing we keep saying, collaborate, but it's the teamwork. It's we can't be in islands, and we can't sit there and be in territories. It's like, part of what you see on your side, realtors are seeing on their side. How do we, and we're seeing the consumer try to navigate, or just tread water in this perfect storm, really.
Yep. The Mortgage Bankers Association, the local units, the national, needs to be collaborating with NAR, especially on this insurance thing, and because that's a qualification issue as insurance goes up. I want to finish with this. Okay. What do you want to deliver on the 26th? What message do you want to get across? To everyone. And from what I understand, I don't know the official format. Some people said you guys are going to have a few minutes on stage, because let me tell you, the lineup that Kim has put together is amazing. The 17 people, I've already talked to a good portion of them, and every one of them is bringing something awesome to the table in their experiences and expertise. So what message do you want to get across?
Well, if I had my druthers, it would be about using technology, whether it's AI and ChatGPT today or whatever it is, mm-hmm. to build connection and improve our communication. Because when we are connected to the consumer, no technology or other shiny object is going to displace us. But if we're not, everything is open game, Katie, bar the door. So that's why I think that is so critical. The rest of it, that's foundational. So the rest of it is just icing on the cake.
100%. I think Sean Carpenter agrees with you. One of his messages, this is a relationship business, and you've got to get in front of your buyers and sellers and in the face-to-face, just, by leveraging that technology to communicate them when you're not in front of them, just to back up what you are telling them in the face-to-face and showing your value. there. Cyndee, I appreciate you coming on today. We could definitely talk for hours. Hopefully, maybe I can reach out to you periodically. I'd love to get like a little forum together because I think insurance is going to continue to be a subject through the next couple of years until people feel, well, I don't know if we'd ever accept the cost of insurance, but to make it more reasonable, but definitely keep everyone advised, especially these buyers and sellers and the real estate agents, on explaining to them what this house insurance could cost you versus that house. I mean, it could be the difference of that. They could be at the same price points, but one could cost you a few $100s more because of the insurance. Simply.
Absolutely. And I would love that opportunity because, again, as we talked about, it's a partnership, right?
Yep.
I mean, what you see helps educate me on things that are coming or things, just simple examples. Those are things like the new home construction and lending and all that. I mean, like on a dime, you're going to hear about stuff that changes opportunities for the consumer. And so the more we're helping each other stay up to date in this dynamic world, the better off for the consumer.
10-4. Look forward to meeting you on the 26th. I'm going to shoot you an email afterwards. I want, if you have a moment in the next couple of days to reply to it and let me know what you think. Just a thought I have. I don't want to express it across the airwaves here, but I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It was a pleasure and you do an amazing job. So